Right, let's properly get things started around here. Just like the original Final Fantasy, we can name absolutely everyone on the team, since everyone is a blank slate. The names don't really matter, so let's make our red guy Carmine. Hopefully I won't spend all that much time in the character creation screen. Unlike the original game, we don't seem to have a choice in what class the characters are when we start things off. They all seem to look the same, just with different colors for their same armor sets. I suppose we'll see how the job system works when we get things rolling. I'm also a bit curious if the color-themed names I'm choosing for these characters are going to fit them for the entire game when we start shifting around their classes, or if they're gonna lose those distinctive colors later on. Anyway, apparently it's taking me longer to come up with a green-themed name than a red and a blue. And apparently I made the guy in pink Brett in honor of Bret the Hitman Hart, the toughest man to ever wear pink. For green? I suppose I could possibly pick an orc-inspired name since orcs are green-skinned. Perhaps Gawain of Camelot, who faced the Green Knight. Maybe Robin Hood, he wore a lot of green. Seriously, Carmine was easy because I keep thinking of the brothers from Gears of War. Blue was a bit shakier, but Azul certainly felt right. What about green? So I went with Midori, the Japanese word for green. Not a great choice, but hey, they're all arbitrary to a degree. We've got 4 names for 4 heroes. Time to get started. Can we at least see the earthquake that apparently got things started? Seriously, don't just describe how bad it was. Show me something that shows the devastation. Though that might have been too much for the original release of the game to pull off all that well graphically. Still, I seem to distinctly recall the planet shake and landmass change after a massive explosion in Final Fantasy I. I'm sure it's possible to pull something off in Final Fantasy III, since I assume it was released on at least the same system as Final Fantasy I back in its original release. Not a very creative name for our starting village, and I'm sure we'll forget about that village as we push forward. Really? So our adventure starts with 4 kids playing around in a random cave that happens to have the ominous skeletons of past adventurers. And I don't even see how Carmine fell down that hole. We just saw him fall. And the other 3 characters just popped up next to him? I'm sorry, but I would have preferred to see all 4 of them fall down there. Then watch all what the hell? The game isn't even bothering to make it clear who's talking here, which of course makes the conversation feel even more pointless. The characters don't have any actual dynamics in this game's story between one another. I'm sure that the 3D remake does something to rectify part of that issue, but the overall plot won't change at all. It's not like it'd make much sense for the characters to get their own arcs when the original release didn't even actually treat them like characters, just 4 blank slates. Anyway, time for our first fight. We don't have many options for what our characters can do at the moment. We can attack and use items, but magic is a completely foreign concept to all of our characters at this point. Add in the fact that our heroes are supposed to be a bunch of kids who were playing around, and I can't help feeling a bit surprised that they have enough gear to be able to kill goblins. Not that goblins are generally treated as all that dangerous in most universes, but still, a bit of a strange way to start things off. But I suppose with a game this old, they can get away with it. Storytelling wasn't much of a priority back then. As a side note, I definitely appreciate the fact that the Pixel remasters all have in-game maps you can open at any time. definitely feels very appreciated after having to use maps from outside of the games to figure out where to go with the previous 2 Final Fantasies I played through on this channel. But I'm not so much of a fan of the various hidden paths and hidden switches we're gonna have to deal with in this game. I'm hoping that by the time we get to Final Fantasy VII and beyond that, we're not gonna have to deal with that sort of hidden pathing anywhere near as much as we do from Final Fantasy 3 to 6. Well, at least this first dungeon is keeping things pretty simple for us. Guess I need to appreciate that while it lasts. Though I'm sure the encounter rate is gonna end up feeling annoying as we keep pushing forward. Wait, Midori's job leveled up? How the hell can that happen when we haven't even gotten far enough into the game for us to have a job system yet? That part of the menu isn't even something we can access yet. And I'm sure the other 3 characters should be getting that sort of job level experience at the same rate as one another. But no. Everyone is at the same regular level, but Midori is the only one at job level 2 for the moment. It's kind of weird. For some reason, I was expecting those one-eyed things to be more durable than that. I know it's still the first dungeon and all that, but still, I wasn't expecting much in the way of visual enemy variety in the absolute first dungeon. And that one-eyed brain thing felt like it deserved to be treated as more dangerous than a goblin of all things. Anyway, for now it looks like leveling up only affects our health, not any of the other stats. Guess the other stats just won't grow until we start having actual jobs around here. It looks like the same color I would expect from drinkable water. Not too sure why the characters felt that the water is worth commenting about here. Ah! So the water has healing properties. So utterly insanely good at healing that there's little to no point in going to an inn when there's one of these healing springs around to drink from. Bit of an interesting choice there. I also like the fact that the Pixel Remaster has its own built-in fast-forward button here. No need for me to mess around with the footage when I can speed things up with auto-battle. Granted, that removes our ability to do anything tactically, but to be fair, it's not like we've got all that many tactical options this early on. Oh, nothing much. We just stumbled onto a room with a major mystical crystal without even knowing it was here, and something malevolent just doesn't like the idea of us interacting with the mystical crystal, so here's our first boss fight. Yeah, this thing is definitely a boss if it can survive more than one hit, but doesn't really look all that menacing to deal with, I'm afraid. Understandable, it's the first ever boss in the game, but still. Should I bother asking how we're missing so many times? I probably should have healed Midori there, but hey, we took the monster down before he took any of us down. That's generally a good sign. Okay, another job level up. Not that it means much for this first available job. Yeah, Midori definitely looks like he needs healing. Still, I think we can get away with delaying when we do that. got to admit, the crystals don't bother to talk to us at all in the original Final Fantasy, and they didn't talk to us until the tail end of Final Fantasy IV with no real fanfare. I'm not really expecting anything profound from them here, but still, that is an interesting choice. I'm sure that the strength we'll gain will not only be imaginable, it will be measurable. I'm sorry, if the light is gonna be this blinding, then no wonder Evil wants to turn it all off. I don't think they have a choice when it comes to accepting destiny, especially in a game this old, when all 4 of them are blank slates. I'm sorry to say that the beginning of the Destined Adventure felt better done in the original Final Fantasy than in this one. It'd be a bit unfair to judge this game based on what Final Fantasy IV has to offer. This game was made before Final Fantasy IV, but it's still kind of interesting that Final Fantasy I feels like it has a better opening than Final Fantasy III. You would think they would figure it out pretty well by that point. We'll just have to see as we keep pushing forward how much better and worse this game feels compared to the original Final Fantasy. Bit of a shame that I couldn't find it in me to play through Final Fantasy II from beginning to end to see how that compares to the original game and to the third game as well. Well, we've earned the first 5 actual jobs of the game here. The same jobs that were available to us at the start of Final Fantasy I. Well, all the jobs except for Thief for some reason. Part of me can't help finding it a bit odd that class isn't included here, if only so we can have 3 physical and 3 magical classes to choose from. Though I suppose the Red Mage counts as a physical and magical class in one, so it's still kind of balanced. I think I'll wait a bit before we decide what classes our team should be at the start. Actually, on second thought, I'm sure there's more for us to grab in the dungeon we just left. No need to go to the initial town just yet. Well, an extra 2,000 in cash certainly is appreciated, especially this early on. Wonder how many people going through this game for the first time would even think to go back to the cave before heading to town. The main reason I thought of it was because we saw a different area than anything he actually walked through when we first saw our main 4 heroes exploring the cave. But it's easy to imagine plenty of people just heading straight to the first town in their first playthrough, especially if this was their first ever Final Fantasy game to ever play through. Thankfully, unlike a lot of other franchises out there, Final Fantasy doesn't care which game you start off with. Every mainline game is treated like an entry point. You can go back to all the other entries if you like. There's enough disconnecting them that you aren't going to feel horribly lost starting off with Final Fantasy XVI and then randomly starting one of the older titles. Okay, if we're getting nunchucks here, then it's probably a good idea for one of our team to become a monk. Also feels like one of them should be a warrior, which probably means that the other 2 should be more magic-focused. Granted, this game isn't really meant for us to have anyone assigned to specific roles like that for the entire game or something. We're supposed to change our classes based on the situation ahead of us in this game, which of course means that they really prefer that you know what's coming. You're not really supposed to go in blind for some reason, which is one of the things that I feel makes Final Fantasy III and its remake feel like one of the rougher entries in the series that I can play from beginning to end, which is more than I can say for Final Fantasy II. Of all the spells to gain from a chest, why did it have to be sleep? Is it just a case of me being too offensively minded or something? Anyway, time for us to fast forward since we've already gone through this part of the dungeon. Guess we'll just have to see how many times we'll fast forward in this game as a whole then. Huh. So we can get attacked from behind in this game? It certainly feels earlier than I would expect from the series. Okay, so we've got a rear and front line to our formation. Pretty sure we're gonna have more control of our formation in this game than in Final Fantasy IV. It's actually kind of interesting that they decided on something like that for Final Fantasy IV, especially since every game that has a formation does things in Final Fantasy III's method. Guess that's what happens when you experiment so much in each game. Sometimes it's just a good idea to revert to the old ways.